Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something wild, how fairies transformed from terrifying ancient Earth deities into tiny pop culture icons, and how they might actually be evolving into the AI algorithms of our future. I'm super excited to guide you through this, because the journey we're about to take is absolutely fascinating.
Quick question. What immediately pops into your head when I say the word fairy? Is it, a tiny, glowing little woman with delicate butterfly wings, maybe hovering over a flower? That's the image most of us grew up with. But as you'll see, that version is a surprisingly recent invention.
Look at the stark contrast here. On one side, we have that cute, sanitized, modern fairy. But the ancient version? Totally different story. Those original beings were human-sized, packed with godlike magic, and frankly, they were known to abduct people. They definitely weren't cute. They were formidable, and they demanded your respect.
So here's our roadmap for the explainer. We're going to track this whole evolutionary arc, starting with ancient gods, moving into medieval demons, hitting the Victorian makeover, exploring some global counterparts, and finally wrapping up with the modern and digital future.
All right, let's jump right into part one, ancient gods, the original fairies.
If we look at Celtic tradition, fairy lore traces way back to beings like the Tuatha Dé Danann. Think of them as exceptionally powerful deities of magic and warfare. Legend has it they ruled Ireland long before humans ever showed up. But as human civilization expanded, mythology tells us these majestic gods retreated into hidden underground mounds. And over time, they became known as the Sea, the fairy folk living in a hidden, enchanted realm right alongside ours.
You see something really similar in Norse mythology too, but it's highly structured. You've got the radiant light elves up in Alfheim, the mysterious dark elves hanging out in the shadows, and of course, the dwarves underground. And just to put their power into perspective, these dwarves literally forged the gods' greatest weapons, including Thor's legendary hammer, Mjolnir. They were deeply woven into the ancient worldview.
Which brings us to part two, medieval demons and the Christian rebrand. Here's where things take a major turn. With the spread of Christianity, these once revered nature spirits kind of had to be explained away to fit the new doctrine. So they got heavily demonized. We're talking rebranded as fallen angels caught between heaven and hell, or used in cautionary tales. Encountering a fairy was no longer this brush with the divine, it became a literal test of your faith.
And because of that massive shift, we get all this dark folklore about malevolent fairies just acting terribly. Suddenly, stories are everywhere about them stealing human infants and leaving behind sickly changelings. They were blamed for vicious pranks, trapping travelers with dangerous illusions, hoarding treasure, and abducting people into realms where time just stood still. Honestly, folks were genuinely terrified of them.
Moving on to part three, the Victorian makeover, featuring literature and, well, hoaxes.
It was really literature that flipped the script here. Back in the 1590s, Shakespeare gives us A Midsummer Night's Dream, softening their image into mischievous, whimsical sprites. Then by the early 1800s, the Grimm brothers dropped their famous tales. They turned fairies into magical beings, equipped with enchanted objects, basically designed to teach kids moral lessons.
But honestly, the ultimate turning point for our modern fairy obsession happened exactly in 1917.
Get this. Two young girls, Elsie and Frances, used simple cardboard cutouts to fake photographs of fairies dancing in their garden. And it completely worked. They fooled a Victorian society that was already super obsessed with spiritualism. It's wild, but even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the guy who created Sherlock Holmes' most logical character ever, publicly championed these photos as authentic proof. It wasn't until decades later that the girls finally admitted the whole thing was a prank.
All right, part four, global counterparts. Let's look at magic around the world, because this definitely isn't just a Western European thing.
Take Japan, for instance. Their folklore is packed with the yokai. It's this incredibly diverse group of supernatural creatures. You've got the obake, who can literally shapeshift into everyday household objects, right alongside the fierce bird-like tengu acting as mountain protectors. Much like European fairies, they can be helpful guides or total tricksters, depending entirely on how you treat them.
It's fascinating to see how different cultures interpret this kind of magic. Look at the Chinese Huli Jing. These are incredibly powerful nine-tailed fox spirits. They draw their magic straight from the moon, and they're notorious for shape-shifting into beautiful women to cast illusions. And get this, the older the fox, the more tails it has, and the more powerful its magic gets.
Then, if we look at African and indigenous perspectives globally, there's a huge focus on animism. So instead of a separate, distinct fairy creature running around, it's more about how every single natural element, the rocks, the rivers, the trees, possesses its own sacred, living, spiritual essence. It's this deeply connected worldview that's all about stewardship and respecting the physical environment.
Which finally brings us to Part 5, the modern and digital future.
Jump to the 20th century and Walt Disney basically commercializes the fairy. Enter Tinkerbell and Pixie Hollow. This permanently cemented the fairy in our minds as this tiny, cute, winged little resident. They shrank him down, gave him super specific talents like manipulating water or light, and made it all about themes of friendship and cooperation.
But here is where it gets really interesting. As we look toward our technological future, the parallels are kind of undeniable. On one hand, ancient lore is all about hidden realms, ethereal guides, and keepers of hidden knowledge. On the other hand, look at what we're building today. Hidden digital realms, AI assistants, and massive machine learning databases.
Just think about how perfectly this maps out. Back in the day, you'd hope a fairy guide would help you safely navigate the woods, right? Well, today, we use AI assistants and chatbots to navigate the web. Those hidden magical realms of the CD, they're basically the VR and AR digital landscapes we're building right now. And those old cautionary tales about making deals with tricky fairies perfectly mirror the ethical dilemmas we're facing today with data privacy and tech dependence. Our machine learning databases have literally become the new keepers of knowledge.
It is such a wild evolution. We've gone from terrifying earth deities to medieval demons to Victorian sprites and now to lines of code. So I'm going to leave you with this to ponder. Have these ancient entities simply shapeshifted one more time? Are digital algorithms literally the new, unseen, incredibly powerful fairies of our modern age? Thanks so much for exploring this with me today.